Item 11, resolution by council members O'Donnell and Herrick approving the 2018 Comprehensive Financial Plan and authorizing the finance director to issue limited tax general obligation bonds and one or more series in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $35 million for other post-employment benefits obligations and requesting immediate effect.
Councilman Sareini.
Thank you, Council President DeBeja. You know, like everyone has said, this has been a long process, and just for the viewers, I think Councilman Bazey had indicated in one of the meetings that the easiest thing to do is just bond, which for our viewers is borrowing money. So borrowing money is very easy for us to do because we have a great rating, because we charge our residents taxes and we pay our bills. There's another municipality that had a councilman in here the other day that said they don't have, I want to quote what city they are, they said they don't have $1 saved of their money, and asked how did we come up with 82 million saved. So this has never been about skirting an obligation. It's easy, as Councilman Bazey indicated, to sit up here and say, let's just fund it fully, which is borrowing money to pay something that we were supposed to already pay into, and then say, don't worry about it. Well, what about the next generation of retirees? The people out here might get theirs, but what about the other ones? That's not the right mindset. I think for me, for sure, and I don't think for any of my other council members agree with that philosophy too. As far as information and receiving it, you know, I was a big proponent of getting the right information. I had to listen to audio tapes several times, and it was very frustrating because I think people tried to make this a lot more complicated than it is. If you get a bill and it's $15 million a year that you need to save in order to make your obligation, and you fund 12, you have $3 million in the hole. So every year you do that, you're going to be right back here again. That's why this proposal I'm comfortable with, because the original proposal put us much higher to 48%, which we could have then not paid attention and been right back in the same scenario in 5 years. I'd like to have been closer to 42. But for me, I'm about compromise. I am actually very proud of this decision. I think the council worked very diligently, really hard to get the accurate numbers and what this means. And as Councilman O'Donnell indicated, we have to now make sure during budget that this comes in at the right number before we go on to our swimming pools, our parks, and so on and so forth. We will be right back here. I think that sometimes gets lost when we say bonding. What we're doing is borrowing money to put it into an account to earn interest on it to hope that we can pay the payment and pay the bills. And just for the record, this was never even an option for cities until recently. And it expires. That's why the deadlines are so crucial. So it's very important going forward not to get in the same scenario. And as Councilman Bazey had indicated in one of the emails to us, he gave us a hypothetical of so many scenarios, all of them which were true. Things can move in this healthcare arena from 3% to 18% in a year. So I'm not blaming blame on anyone. For me, I always like to go forward. But I will tell you, this council person, and I believe this body, will definitely look at the first thing in the budget is these obligations, because I do not believe that we should short our obligations and then come back and borrow more money again. I don't think that's a good recipe. And for the record as well, we have another fund that our investors come in and say, it's a great thing, you're $16 million overfunded. That's not a good thing, okay? I don't know where people say, this is great, you have 16 million extra that you can't touch. No, what that means is we overestimated, the numbers weren't accurate, we paid our obligations, and now we have $16 million that we couldn't use for our regular process and operation of the city. So it's not a rocket science type of analysis. People look at this a lot of time and say it's very complicated, it moves. It's very simple. You have a number that you have to attain based on actuaries that are given to you. You have to get as close as you can. And I think this definitely is something that I will support. I believe that going 44% on a state mandated 40% gives us a little bit of cushion, but doesn't allow us to take our eye off the ball. Because if we do, we'll be right back here soon. So thank you, Council President. what you're stating is correct, but the money didn't get in there by mistake. We put it in, and the market did better than expected, and the numbers were skewed. You know, I wish you come to some of the budget meetings when you see these gentlemen that come in, that are lawyers and accountants, and tell us these are the numbers they have to be. Now we see later that they were wrong. So my point is, I don't know about you, but I'd rather have put in each year over those 15 years than to put it in when we did. In those days, dollars, we could have did more for. So irregardless, to have $16 million additional, for me, that's not a good thing, because that money was not used elsewhere. So whether we didn't put in any more throughout the year doesn't mean that that was a good thing, that we had our estimates so wrong. You see, my concern is, how do I get to the number? And how do we do it consistently? Because when you're not the president, there's going to be another president that comes. So
All right.
that's why my concern was over and adding $5 million. If we put the whole $45 million in, we still have to make our pay-as-our-go obligations of $12.5 million or so, plus the bond payment, which is 16 or 17 million. If we don't put that in, which we have not, the last 2 years we haven't, and before, so then we're going to be in a hole again. So I think this is something, as I indicated, going forward, we have to continue to watch for. So for me, I'm not in favor of adding $5 more million to obligation. And just so you know, too, the money that we're getting it at around, Councilman Bazey, maybe you can, it was 4 3/4?
It'd probably be the total cost, so for the cost of issuance.
Yes.
So that number, it's a total all-in number. That's what I look at. 'cause
Okay.
it's
Yeah, that's what I was, and I thought that's what you were asking, and that's what I was asking from PFM. She continued to indicate the rate. I think we need to know what the total cost is with the build-in, the commission soft, and so forth, and that's what we're getting at, because for our residents to understand, and for the president here to understand, we're borrowing money at approximately 4.75. It's like going to the casino, putting it in and hoping that we get 6 or 7, right? You do understand that, right? So if we get a crash and we don't get it, we lost more money than we put in. This is why it was never available for you. When you talk about perfect storm, it was never available for municipalities to borrow money on obligations they should have had until recently. And I believe that Councilman Bazey had indicated, and I think Councilman O'Donnell has indicated, that the way the market has changed and the healthcare has changed over the years, nobody could have anticipated it. And that's why the state stepped in to do the 40. But you were here Thursday, where some cities nearby have 0. 44% is a very good, especially with the way things are moving, in my opinion.
Can make a quick comment, just a real fast one.
And some cities have higher.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm
All
sure.
right.
Absolutely.
Councilman
But they're
Bazey?
not as old as ours, too.